I'm about to call in an airstrike on my own Marine platoon on Hill 861. In this video, I'm going to explain to you the strategy and tactics behind tough decisions and why I chose to make this one. We made a lot of right decisions coming into this objective, and we made a lot of bad ones at the same time. Our reinforcements are not going to arrive for another turn, and our Marine platoon on Hill 861 is weakened, and they're surrounded on three sides. Basically, in the next turn, the North Vietnamese army is going to assault that position, taking it from us. If we were to retrograde out of that position with our Marine platoon, the NVA would have a free shot at our infantry unit and therefore eliminating us, and then we give up Hill 861 without a fight. If we opted to keep the Marine platoon on Hill 861, it at least puts some resistance there and allows us to maybe maintain it. But unfortunately, that's not what happened in this scenario. So if we were going to lose Hill 861, I wanted to have fire on that position, as you see. So when the North Vietnamese invade it and they eliminate our Marine platoon, we'll at least have air support, our chopper support, and artillery fire falling on that objective. Unfortunately, the plan worked perfectly. Our plan was flawless. I think our decision making was perfect and it just made a lot of sense to me. But the AI did not really abide by that decision, as you saw a few seconds ago. They did move in to capture Hill 861, as you see, but they immediately fell back out, negating our strategy and really kind of like rubbing salt in our wound. And you can watch this live. Like, it was an insane, absolutely insane move by the AI. I feel like we made every right decision we could on this objective, and that's wargaming. It's a lot of tough decisions, and I really like the freedom we have, at least in Campaign Series Vietnam, about the decisions we can make. I like the ability to call in airstrikes on my own units, call in artillery strikes on my own units, or just like random objectives. It really opens up the dynamic, creates creative gameplay, and allows you to play the game a bit more fluidly and tactically. These are hard decisions. These decisions need to be made in real life, whether it's wargaming, whether it's like real life operations, and it's important to like test them out in this scenario. And I think this scenario was like perfect with our decision making, with everything that allowed us to move into it. But at the same time, do we sacrifice that Marine platoon to friendly fire to hold that objective for one more turn? Or do we retrograde out of it and lose the objective, but possibly keep them alive? I want to know what your thoughts are on this situation, because this is really a really tough decision. Think about all the like airstrikes or air support missions that happen really close range to our troops on the battlefield, or even like ground fire support. Sometimes you're operating really close to each other. Like, we have a chopper basically 500 meters out providing rocket fire support on the North Vietnamese army. There is a lot of room for friendly fire, fratricide, and just accidents to happen on the battlefield. And even if we negate all those accidents, there's time or situations where we may need to use those resources directly on top of the objective, directly on top of the unit, directly on top of our own forces. And I think that's something that makes wargaming a bit unique in some situations. It allows us to like game out strategies and come up with new ideas to see if something is truly worth it. And here at Hill 861, I do believe that that was the correct decision. Calling artillery, calling airstrikes, because we knew that Marine platoon, if they moved, they would be eliminated by the North Vietnamese army. If they stayed with no airstrike, then they would have been eliminated, and then we would have just freely handed over Hill 861. Whereas the NVA had a different idea. They just wanted to move in, secure the objective, and then immediately retrograde out. So even though we prepared everything, like we prepared for all scenarios, they moved immediately out of our airstrike, and therefore we didn't even strike an enemy target. We just struck the bunker that was there. We lost our Marine platoon, and then they actually retrograded back into the artillery section or artillery battery fire, which worked out for us in the end. And it was really fun. It was really fun to talk through it, figure the scenario out, and kind of problem solve it, what the best scenario or situation would be for this Marine platoon. As you see that there's still an airstrike on the bunker to the northeast or the northwest of Hill 861 that did not come in. We have been waiting for the airstrike for quite some time because, as if you know, like, not that there's a chance for the airstrike to come in, and it was kind of surprising that our Hill 861 airstrike came in almost immediately after after our Marine platoon, and it was just this crazy turn of events that just kept happening in this situation where the AI would just kind of act a bit weird and try and outplay you. And it was actually a lot of fun, and it kind of made like campaign this moment really, really memorable and like fun, dynamic, and just kind of really made me want to play like another turn or another match of campaign series Vietnam. In this scenario, I believe it is, and so it begins. If you look at the top, you can see that we have two forces separated, and we actually secured Hill 861 with a relatively light force. But the North Vietnamese had a much larger force, a much larger army. They're also regulars, so they're relatively like have some good strength and some good morale. Split our forces in half. So we had two objectives on the west we needed to secure, and then we needed to hold Hill 861 as well. And as you see, we have all the artillery in the world. That's our air support dialogue box. We have M101 Alpha 1s, 105 millimeter cannons. We have short range 81 millimeter artillery, and then we have some 155s as well. And as you see, like this fight, like we're reinforcing this position on Hill 861 to ensure that we keep it secure and we maintain that position. We're constantly dropping artillery in this scenario. We have so much firepower that we need to put downrange. It is ridiculous. We also have a ton of air support. So even with all that firepower, a much larger force is able to get in and around you and surround you. And it forces you to make these kind of difficult decisions, these difficult choices where you need to decide, do you hold your ground? Do you retrograde your ground? How long do you keep a Marine platoon in position for? And what are the acceptable amount of casualties you're willing to take? Like, what's the objective worth to you, or to you as a player, or to you as a nation? And it's really, really fun. I think it's kind of something I enjoy about wargaming. It kind of puts you in these scenarios where you need to make a lot of decisions. And I think in wargaming, or at least in this scenario, we didn't value human life as much as we should have. I mean, calling in an airstrike on Hill 861 on our own units is like a really tough decision to make. So being in that position, like in this game, we can just say, you know what? We send these troops home in body bags, they're going to die anyway. But if we were truly on the ground or had to make this decision ourselves, could we pull that trigger? What would happen? Is this the right decision to make? And this is why we war game. And I think it's fun just to like think through these scenarios, think through these situations, and really like factor in the cost of life, the cost of the objective, and just have like a fun scenario where you can like, you know what? If they lose this and this is my only option, would it be acceptable to call in an airstrike on our own troops? And I think that was like perfect. I think we made the decision. We talked through this decision. Me and a few other viewers talked through the decision for quite a while on stream. We talked through like, is it a good strategy? What happens when they move in? Is it a failed assault? And I think the ultimate decision, like the ultimate deciding factor of it, was that the Marine platoon was already relatively weak. It was a two strength Marine platoon. They were holding their ground really, really good. They've been assaulted 3, 4, 5 times over the course of like 7 turns. It just took too long to reinforce them. And unfortunately, by the time we were on the door to reinforce this Marine platoon, it was too late. As you see over at like to the west of that position, we have just like engineer platoons, marine platoons moving into position. But unfortunately, it was just we weren't fast enough with our decision making process to begin with. So unfortunately, we had to fight our way there. Like it wasn't that we weren't fast enough, like we didn't move fast enough. We had to fight our way into this position, which meant using resources in other areas. So we weren't hammering away at these Marine platoons or these NVA platoons this whole time with artillery airstrikes. And unfortunately, I truly believe that our hog or our chopper gunner with rockets wasn't as effective as I would have liked it to be in this scenario, as you see up there in the northeast corner of the screen. It's amazing to have that firepower, but the inaccuracy of it, and he's shooting into the jungle at these NVA troops. So the inaccuracy of it kind of really put us in a position, and like the lack of airstrikes not coming in on time, or at least coming in later, put us in a rough position as well. The one constant we could always count on was artillery, and we had tons and tons and tons of artillery on this mission. But sometimes they just don't hit their targets, they don't disrupt them, we don't get the eliminations we need, and it's just not enough. So no matter how much firepower we put on this position, we could not get to those troops in time. So that's kind of what led us to this ultimate decision of, do we drop a bomb on Hill 861 with the Marines? Let me know if you think that was the right decision. Let me know how you would have played this scenario differently. I'll put a link down to the game store in the description, and you can check it out for yourself. Like, comment, subscribe. Truly let me know your thoughts. All right, guys. And the video will run for like 20 more seconds, I think. Peace.